Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Catholic Citizen live here from the AWAKEN Catholic Studios as I present to you this week's news from a Catholic perspective. We've got breaking news this morning as the second largest city has just fallen to the Taliban in Afghanistan. 390,000 people are running for their lives to the capital in Kabul right now. Folks, it's a dangerous, messy situation over there. And right now, the individuals and the groups that won't let women go to school, that behead people if they go against the laws, and who harbor terrorist groups are about to have and seize that country once again because of our poor mismanagement as a nation. All of this and more in just a second this week on The Catholic Citizen. Friends, so much going on in the world. We have to dive in. We got to get to it today so that you can stay informed, that you're able to form your conscience in such a way that when it comes around to voting, when it comes around to being engaged in local, in state, and in national politics, you know what you're talking about. You know who to vote for. You know how to live in the midst of this craziness going on right now. But before we get there, let's go ahead and take time just to thank our sponsors. First, Casa Bea Cleaning. We love the people of Casa Bea. Casa Bea, they're incredibly competent. They're incredibly good people. They're incredibly good looking. All of the above. They are a unique combination of being competent, good looking, and great prices. All at Casa Bea Cleaning. They'll clean your home, your residence, your workplace, wherever it may be, keeping you COVID-19 free. And that's what we need in this world. We want to be COVID-19 free, and certainly some other things that the government has proposed is not helping. So, Casa Bea Cleaning. Check them out, and please patron them because they patron us. Secondly, we need you to be a part of the show. So thankful. We got a $100 donation this month, a $300 donation earlier in the month. We have a few people becoming citizens of heaven, which means they pay on a monthly basis. We have an individual paying $3 a month, an individual paying $25 a month. If you think this show has value and you think it's helpful to get this information out there, please go to thecatholiccitizen.com today. And even if it's just $3, the price of a cup of coffee, and there's different perks you get if you join on and help out with the show. So if you're interested in any of those perks, even some of the higher perks, hey, you can tell me what you want me to talk about, and I'll talk about it. So please check it out. Check us out at thecatholiccitizen.com. Let's keep this show going. Let's keep the lights on. All right, today's news. Leading story, of course, Afghanistan is in ruins, and I think some of that is our poor mismanagement as a nation and the current administration and the way that we're handling this. Now, first, let me say this about Afghanistan. It's a very difficult place, right? And the United States went to war in Afghanistan after the September 11th attacks because we learned that Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda was being harbored there in this particular country by the Taliban. The Taliban, who, as I said to begin the show, does not allow, women to go to school, does not allow women to function in society, that kills LGBT people, who kills people if they break the law or cuts off their hands. This is the group that had control of that country. Now, we liberated that nation, but now we're in a situation where that same group is about to have control. And look, President Trump, he called for the withdrawal of the troops from Afghanistan, and now President Biden has called for the withdrawal of the troops from Afghanistan. Fair enough. We don't like our boys, our soldiers, our young men and young women over there fighting overseas. And I recognize that. And we recognize that war is a defeat for humanity. But look, if you want peace, you have to have two things: strength and strategy. Two of things that we're not showing right now in the country of Afghanistan. Now, what's going on? Let me give you a little bit of background or history just for a second here. In 2014, you know who led the troop withdrawal from Iraq, who was helping to organize that, directing that from the administrative perspective? That was then President Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden. Now, if you recall in 2014, when we were removing troops, we were doing it in a way that was just It was not good. And there was sectarian violence. And President Obama actually had to go in and reverse what Vice President Joe Biden was doing. And he sent troops back into the country because it was such a mess the way that we were removing the troops. Right now, then, in Iraq, we still have 2,500 U.S. troops who are remaining in the country. Now, this was the same number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan to begin this year. So some of this is politically motivated. There wasn't necessarily it's not like we had brigades over there. We got 10,000 troops or 20,000 troops remaining in the country. We had a very small contingent still in the country, 2,500, but there was peace in Afghanistan. But then we announced, hey, by the way, we're going to move by September 11th of the following year. Now, the Biden administration, though, concerned about the political fallout of leaving on September 11th, 20 years after the September 11th attack, said, no, let's move up the timetable a little bit. So let's leave by August. So they're leaving in haste all these troops and non-governmental personnel. Now, what's been taking place then? Well, the Taliban now has 2/3 control of the country. That same group that harbored these terrorists, didn't let women go to school, are now going to have control in the country within weeks, maybe within days. They're now in possession, because we've left such in haste, of approximately 100 U.S. Humvees and MRAPs, which are mine-resistant vehicles, and also several U.S. Scan Eagle drones. So in short, that's billions of United States tax dollars going to Islamist extremists in Afghanistan, thanks to the administration's hasty withdrawal without a peace deal or a follow-up mission. And what happened again, just like in Iraq, what does the administration had to do? Because they're leaving in such haste, they said, let's send in 3,000 more troops. We got to make sure that everybody's safe. Never mind you that 390,000 Afghans have fled to the capital for safety because they're fearing for their lives. Can you put yourself in their shoes for just a moment? You went along with this country that came into your nation because they granted freedom. For the first time in your life, your little daughter could go to school. And so, yeah, you supported that government. And now that government is just leaving you because it looked good politically to remove the troops. Let's get the troops out. We could have kept a small contingent there, kept the country safe, and the Taliban and the Islamic extremists could have known, look, the United States are still here. They're still committed to being here. We can't take things over. We could have enabled more time for their military to be prepared to fight this fight. But now, no, it's let's get out of there. And look, again, we recognize war is a defeat for humanity. We don't like it. We don't like our troops being overseas. But when we leave in haste to make a political point, we leave people to die. It's not fair, it's not right, it's not just. But that's what we're doing right now. Meanwhile, back here at home, this is just breaking actually today, this morning. Our southern border it's absolutely falling apart, folks. This last month, 188,829 persons attempting entry into the southwest border of the United States of America that we know about, that we apprehended. Unaccompanied children increased this month by 8%, which is 15,253. These are some of the highest numbers that we have seen in 21 years. Meanwhile, at the University of Wisconsin, we are calling rocks racist. That's right. A large boulder has been removed from the University of Wisconsin-Madison after the Black Student Union and other racial justice activists complained about it being a racist monument. Now, back in the 1920s, I guess a reporter used a terrible, awful word that no one should ever use and called the rock an N-word, and somehow that ended up in a paper or something of that nature. So an idiot, a racist, called a rock a name he shouldn't never have used, a name that no one should ever use. But then somehow this is unearthed 80 years later and they say, hey, that rock is racist. Let's remove the rock. Like, if rocks are racist, so we're losing foreign wars, our borders are overrun, and there's internal moral decay and chaos. Folks, you know what that's a recipe for? The country being destroyed. We've got a country to save. We have a country to save, and it's a call to arms to every Christian. You can't ignore what's going on in the world and the country today. We can't retreat to our safe little bubbles and say, I'm not going to watch the news anymore. We have to be engaged at every level to save our nation. Otherwise, we won't have a nation. You might say, well, it's okay. It's not about the United States anymore. Do you care about your kids? Do you care about their future? You care about their ability to live out lives and follow their dreams, to have jobs, to have food on their plate for their kids when they have children? You better start caring. Because you have a president of the United States after Andrew Cuomo. Remember Andrew Cuomo? New York governor. Threw COVID patients into nursing homes in New York City. Lied about the numbers of patients who were dying. And oh, by the way, was sexually assaulting women all during this. 11 women have come forward to have credible reports about his sexual assault during his time as governor. Excuse me. So he's quit. He says, I'm done. I'm sorry. I apologize. He said he didn't realize he was crossing a line with these women. Yeah. You can't just go up and just start kissing women, Governor Cuomo. Nonetheless, this is the same governor, by the way, that lit up near the New York, was it the Trade Center there, or the Empire State Building in pink whenever they passed legislation supporting the killing of children through all 9 months of pregnancy. So this individual who's a huge supporter of President Biden, so President Biden comes out and was asked about this, and this is what he says when questioned about Governor Cuomo resigning. He's done a hell of a job, Joe said. That's why it's so sad. That's why it's so sad that he's resigning? Because he's done a hell of a job? No mention of these 11 women who were sexually assaulted? Where is the Me Too movement? Where are all the voices? Oh, that's right. Some of them from that movement were giving him advice on how to defend himself in the midst of this. So if it's a Republican nominee to the Supreme Court who's accused of things, we believe every single accuser, every single word. We berate that man. We destroy his family. We destroy his history. We go through his high school yearbooks. But if it's the Democratic governor of New York, he's done a hell of a job. All right, next story. Mandated vaccines for seminarians. All right, mandated vaccinations are becoming the thing. New York City, San Francisco, Microsoft, Tyson Foods, most likely United States military soon. Actually have a friend, Whitney McAfee, in the United States Military Corps. Refused to get the vaccine and refused to wear the mask because she said, look, this is junk science. But beyond that, it covers up my face, which is the image and likeness of God. Now, you may agree or disagree with, what the mask does or does not do, but she had religious reasons for refusing these things. She's gone. She's out of the military now. Her future, the benefits, may not receive them anymore. This is having an impact on real people in our community. We say, wow, the people just suck it up, do what the government says to do. Well, we've done what the government said to do. The government said in 2 weeks, we can stop the tide of this virus. You can't stop a respiratory virus, folks. You can't. We were told the vaccine, if everybody just takes the vaccine, if we get to a certain point, 70%, we're there. We'll be okay. Oh, shoot. Even vaccinated people can carry the virus. And in fact, they're probably more dangerous than the unvaccinated because when the unvaccinated have the virus now, they have the symptoms. They know to quarantine. They know not to go out. But when vaccinated people get the virus, they might have a little symptom. They might feel like a little bit like the common cold. So they go out and they spread the virus to other people. Just trust the government, though. But what's surprising here is that a seminary in Maryland, Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Emmitsburg, Maryland, are now required, the seminarians there, to receive a COVID-19 shot. Maybe they should read what the South Dakota bishops just wrote. A Catholic may, after consideration of relevant information and moral principles, discern it to be right or wrong to receive one of the available COVID-19 vaccines. Now, the seminary in Maryland, to their credit, has given the seminaries a chance to apply for religious exemption. But I guess that line has been crossed and now they can no longer apply for it. But why in the world are seminarians being asked to apply for a religious exemption? They're seminarians who are giving their life to Christ for the gospel of life, for the goodness of life, for the dignity and value of every single life and soul that they want to save. But they need to apply for a religious exemption. Allow me to ask you a question. Maybe I've asked this on the show before. And look, I get remote material cooperation. And I get that it is morally illicit to receive the vaccinations, like the South Dakota bishop said. You can discern with a good conscience for the betterment of the common good. Maybe you have some vulnerable members in your family. Maybe there's elderly in your family that you're concerned about spreading the virus to, whatever it may be. Again, I don't know if practically the vaccine is the best way to even go in this circumstance, but the church has said it's morally illicit to receive the vaccine. So we follow the church. To whom else do we go? But let me just ask you a question. This is what I've asked myself. If there was a young Jewish woman in Auschwitz from Krakow originally, taken to Auschwitz, was tested on by the Nazis, and we took some of the cells from her human embryonic kidney, and we tested on that, the Nazis did, and then they just continue to reproduce those cells over the years, and then eventually we get to a point where there's a great pandemic, and we're still using that young Jewish girl's cells to test, produce those vaccines. Would that make you feel just a tad bit uncomfortable? Would that make you question, just a little bit, whether or not you should take the vaccine? Friends, that was a Nazi experiment. It's a hypothetical. But it's not a hypothetical here. This is an American experiment. An American experiment where we took the kidney from a human baby. And what we're learning from the University of Pittsburgh and their studies that they're getting funded from the NIH is that when these kidneys, when these organs are taken from the little babies, often they are born alive or killed right before these organs are taken. Because just like in an organ transplant, you need the person to be as close to as alive as possible for those organs to function properly when they're taken to another human person. It's no different when you're scalping out the heart, the liver, the kidneys of these preborn children that you're killing and then taking their organs so that you can take those and then go use them to be tested upon. And so, yeah, those cells from those original lines reproduced multiple times in these experiments. It's making you feel just a tad bit uncomfortable. If it doesn't, and here's my problem, here's my issue. Look, I get the remote material cooperation, okay? So you weren't engaged in that act. It's not anything you desire. You seek the common good. You care about keeping people away from what can be a really terrible virus. I get that. But the church seems more concerned with pressuring people to get the vaccine and encouraging it, and just maybe considering that some people might have some religious qualms about this than they do about the fact that our modern day medicines, including this vaccine, is being tested and produced using aborted fetal cells. Like we care more about pressuring people in the church than we have outrage about the reality of where these originally came from. Allyson Felix, the most decorated Olympian in track and field in history in the United States of America. 11 medals. Absolutely incredible. Now, he had Simone Biles, the gymnast, and I'm not getting into, she was struggling with anxiety, depression, and things like that. She had to step back. Look, folks, I've had anxiety, depression. It's difficult. It's challenging. We hope that everyone can fight through it, and you put yourself out there on the line. But why people felt so called to engage in whether she should have been jumping or not, I don't know. But one thing that did bother me is after the game, she comes out on her Instagram account and says, I'm very pro-choice, even though that she was a foster care child, even though she got through the foster care system and is now an Olympian. She was arguing that because the foster care system is bad, we should abort our children. First of all, how does it make the kids in foster care feel at this moment? Like your life really shouldn't be lived right now because you're in the foster care system. It would have been better if you were just aborted. I mean, how awful is that to say to somebody? So you have that one worldview, but here's another worldview. Here's someone who is out there to change things, to make things for the better. Allyson Felix, 11 medals in track and field. And when Allyson Felix, she used to be sponsored by Nike, but then she became pregnant. And Nike cut her pay because she became pregnant as a sponsor. In fact, they do this with all pregnant athletes, in fact, until Felix came along and said, this is absolutely wrong. She left. She went to Athleta, was a woman-focused apparel brand that offers full maternity benefits. And this is why so many track and field athletes, as well as other Olympic athletes, feel pressured to abort their kids because they're going to lose finances. They might lose their chance at Olympics. Now, think of this. I think we heard yesterday on my show, Allyson Centofanti from Live Action was talking about the reality that, Olympians will abort their children so they have a chance to run in the Olympics. Well, the 2020 Olympics was canceled. Were there Olympians that aborted their children in hopes of competing for gold? But then they aborted their children for the Olympics to be canceled. Nonetheless, Allyson Felix, she went out, she had her baby, and she came back and won all these medals at this Olympics Games. And she started the Power of She Fund, which offers childcare grants to athlete mothers traveling to competitions. Her story is a win for mothers, and her story is a win for all of us. You can be a mom and achieve your dreams. You can be a mom and be the most decorated Olympian in track and field history for the United States of America. But what is the lie that we're sold over and over again? And we pressure young women in this country. Kill your child. Otherwise, you can't be who you want to be. All right, last thing for today's show. A great article from The Catholic Gentleman. I don't have it in today's notes, so you might have to go look it up, but I just saw it, and just really strong. It's the hidden blessing in the decay of the world system. And I had this feeling, it was so interesting, because I had this feeling in church the other day, and I'm looking at the news, I'm looking at the world situation, I'm thinking about the reality of, we're still aborting 2,800 kids every day in this nation. Like every day, we're killing 2,800 kids. And I'm just like, my God, I don't, for the first time, I feel a little uneasy about being a Christian in today's world. Like there was an article that came out of a European newspaper the other day, and it was like, it's World End Christianity Day, and it's like all these young people flicking off the camera, talking about how they're going to go about to destroy Christianity. It's like I feel like for the first time, it's not, I don't know, I don't want to say a popular thing, but like a good thing to be a Christian in the culture and society. Like it's looked down upon if you hold traditional views on sexual ethics, for example, or whatever it may be. And this has been coming for many years, but for the first time, it just kind of really hit me. Like, I'm not at home here. But it's a good thing, because for the first time, like, I didn't care about the way that people were like, looking at me if I sang really loudly, if I held up my hands in praise and worship, because I was like, this isn't my home. Like, it doesn't matter what they think about me. It doesn't matter what the world thinks about me. It matters only that I'm here to worship God completely in spirit and truth and everything that I have, just to give him my all, because this isn't my home. I'm traveling to a destination, which is my eternal homeland. And so I got home and I read this article, and I was like, there it is. Many places, quote, many places in Scripture speak in similar terms, but they can be all summed up by the forceful words of the Apostle St. James. Friendship with the world is enmity with God. Friendship with the world is enmity with God. So it is not wrong, the author writes, that many Christians feel as if the world system is suddenly against them. It always has been. The only difference between times of seeming freedom and now is that the mask, the veneer, is being stripped away, and we are seeing things for what they are, and it can be tremendously clarifying. So it's time for us to do a self-examination. Are you a friend of the world, or are you a friend of Christ? As Catholic citizens, may we choose Christ. We'll see you next week on The Catholic Citizen.